Today, we're talking about the fact that right now, Matthew is helping lead a top 50 firm. And me, well, what am I doing?
You may never have clarity on that after this episode.
I'm unemployed. How did we get here? What happened? Why did this all happen? We are going to be talking about this today on Drink While You Think, everybody's favorite happy hour podcast, where a couple of firm owners
Former burn
former
owners.
bird owners get together and talk about the weird things that they do in their firm. And boy, do we have a doozy this time of some real weirdness that we are doing. But as always, I'm your co-host Kenji, here with my trusty partner in crime, Matthew. Matthew, what are you drinking today, and who is our sponsor?
Today's sponsor for Drink While You Think is Brivaldo Capital Advisors. Brivaldo Capital Advisors, serving the investment banking community for years, now has their initial foray representing Acuity in their initial accounting mega transaction. Brivaldo Capital Advisors. Thank you, Don, Mark, and Mark.
There you go. Thanks, Team
Shout out to
Follow
you guys.
Capital. We'll talk more about them. All right, what are you drinking? What
Okay.
are we drinking here?
Looks like I've got, because this is a special occasion that we haven't recorded in 4 months or whatever, I'm going with a beer that you would associate with me and you're doing differently. So I got the Moody Tongue. It's the caramelized chocolate churro porter. I mean, this one's a 7%er, and I never drink a smaller alcohol percentage than you, so this will be an interesting day
Interesting.
today because
The Moody Tongue by Matthew and the Moody Tongue.
Moody Tongue.
That sounds about right. Sounds kind of gross. I'm going with the Death's Tar. Not Death Star, Death's Tar. From Revolution Brewing. I think this might be a Randy Crabtree. And ladies
this
and
is too. This is Chicago.
Is it?
Illinois,
Is it?
But this is the Randy one too.
Stout aged in bourbon barrels.
I know,
I
but
should have
did you
probably
see the
drinking.
percent on that?
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's a 14%.
that's all 14.8. We'll round that sucker up to 15. I mean, this is
These are Matthew color beers.
you're gonna have to drive me home, Matthew, after this. We're filming in all right, dude.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Whoa!
Okay.
Yikes. Okay.
That's gonna burn some throat hairs. Okay.
Our biggest goal today is hopefully not to get sued by talking about things that we're not supposed to talk about. The level of drinking that we're doing, I don't know. We've run a fair shot at that. So we shall see how this goes. Okay.
Just a second. I'm a little cold.
You're a little cold? Okay.
Yeah,
Matthew's a little cold. I know he's
I
in the fridge.
gotta put a sweater on.
He's gonna put his
Did you not get one of these Sorren branded
What is that?
things?
Sorren? What the hell is that? You put that on over your Acuity shirt?
You not get one of these yet?
No, I did not get one of those. Matthew, first of all, what in the hell is Sorren? Let's start with that.
Okay.
Because that's what's going on right now. What's Sorren, Matthew?
Well, starting in January, for those of you who don't know, we decided to join forces with a 14 firm conglomerate, 14 firms across the United States to build a mega firm, basically. And DFW Capital is our financial partner, kind of coming together, and we're rebranding all together as a firm called Sorren. So that's kind of exciting. So, and Kenji didn't get swag yet, but I did order him. I did order him some, so he can't complain.
Golf shirt, which is where I'm
No,
spending.
I got you like a hat and stuff.
Did you
say?
say?
Oh yeah.
Okay, nice. I'll take if a golf shirt too. That's where I'm trying to spend my time these days. But no, very exciting news with Sorren. This press release just hit recently, and so some of the word is out. And so we're happy to talk about it now because we had to be really quiet, dude. We've been so freaking quiet
We've
for the
been
last
good.
year and a half almost.
No.
It's been painful. So let's rewind and get back to how did we get to this point where Matthew's now in leadership at a mega firm? I'm out doing some random things. We'll talk about all that. But let's get back into the why, because I think this is interesting. And if you remember this, but it was about a year and a half ago. It was early 2024.
Yep.
We were all sitting down, you, me, Patty, and Lisa, our shareholders at Acuity. And we were doing some planning because last year in 2024 was our 20th anniversary of running Acuity, which was pretty cool. So we talked about some fun things to celebrate. But as soon as we finished talking about those plans, we kind of looked at each other and said, what are we supposed to do for the next 20 years? Like, what can you imagine what the next 20 you're going to look like? And we had a really good conversation about what we thought the next 20 should look like. And I remember feeling very much um, grateful for where Acuity had gotten to, much bigger and much more impactful than I ever thought it was going to be. I just
Yeah.
thought we were building something, messing around and for you and me and trying to make our lives like we were pretty fed up with the accounting industry for a while. So we're like, let's just do something that makes us happy. So we did. Lo and behold, it became a bigger thing. And then it became well, how do we keep it going? Like, how do you always use the word sustainable?
Yep.
Like,
How to
how do we
keep it
be
sustainable.
sustainable? So we're like, what does that look like for the next 10 or 20 years? And
Since you're old, I mean, this probably hit home.
yeah, it did hit home. It did hit home like at 20 years in. But I'd say the thing that hit home the most was because we'd done planning before. Like I think all firms do planning and we kind of sometimes do long-term planning, but like I remember we had the discussion of, okay, let's think in terms of like very personally, what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years of your life? And we're like, okay. Like, no, think about like you, your parents, your kids, your family members. And then it was a little bit of like oh shit, like there's a lot happening there on the personal front.
Yep.
And then we started thinking too about what do we think is going to happen in the accounting industry in the next 10, 20 years? We were like, yeah, right? You were like, I think there's a lot's going to happen,
I mean,
a lot of change, right?
I think so.
And so I think as owners, leaders, we were like, I think we got to be prepared. I don't think the same way we've done this gets us sustainable. Didn't feel like, at least we weren't sure, right?
I think the attitude does, like we the like keep being curious get you there, but like there's definitely monumental shifts coming and changes and that requires energy and people and we're not getting smaller. So
I
at
think
the
you see
time we
that.
weren't getting smaller.
That's exactly right. I think we saw those changes coming. And we can talk about what we think those are. I mean, there's ones that everybody talks about, right? Technology, outside investors, more of a global workforce, could be changing demographics coming in or out of the industry. And we just saw was a tremendous amount of change. We thought, well, let's keep our attitude of being, you know, taking risks and trying things, but like it's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take some capital. And I think that's where we realized if we are going to make sure that our clients and our team at Acuity continue to thrive and grow, we need to be open-minded about what we need to do for the coming decades.
I think the other thing we talked about at that point was, I mean, we consider ourselves relatively savvy on what's going on in the ecosystem, but we sat around and none of us knew what was real. Like, none of us knew what the real opportunities were, like the alternatives. So, as we're going through this thought exercise, now people had approached us at different points saying, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I know one of the things that you and I talk about a lot is how to we be really intentional when we make a decision about going through a process, right? How do we take control and not be reactive? Like, how do we be proactive in this process? And I think that was a huge thing that came out of that too
It was a
was
big unlock, yeah. I mean, I think you do a very good job of this, as much shit as I give you about it, but like you like to think way down the chessboard, as we say. This often throws people off. It confuses people because sometimes you're trying to get an answer on something you need right now. Matthew's response sounds way out of left field because he's actually thinking about like 10 steps further past that thing you're asking him for.
I'm working on that.
I
I'm
know
working
he's
on
good
that.
about it. But in this case, in a time like this, it's helpful because right, we do have to think out there. You start thinking of the multitude of things that are going to happen in the next 10 years. It's a little overwhelming. And we didn't have any answers. And when we were talking about this, we didn't have any answers, but I knew, and those two personal things were like the world is changing quickly in accounting, which is exciting, but it's going to require a lot more energy, more capital, some things we believe, more people. But also we had to look at ourselves, honestly, as leaders and kind of say, where do where are we? What role do we play in this? Like, what is our role? I mean, are we gonna want to keep doing the thing ourselves, which was always an option, right? We better put full energy into this. We better be ready to rock and roll and go. And that's a little bit of a different thing after 20 years. I think maybe we'll speak about that more. After 20 years of this, you're like, do I still want to do the same? I mean, do I want to put that same effort in?
Yeah, you weren't there yet in
No,
February.
I
Like
wasn't.
you fast forwarded a little bit.
That's true. That's true. I did fast forward. But I think what we were trying to accomplish was we knew the business needed to evolve, the firm needed to continue. We need to look at the resources we had today at Acuity. And that means all of our people, all of us, the capital we have, and think to ourselves, is that going to be sufficient for what we think the next couple of decades are going to be? And I think we said, yeah, we could do that. We could, absolutely. But there are probably some other options we haven't considered yet. And that's where I think all of us looked at each other and said, we are willing as shareholders to explore all the options. Let's just put all the cards on the table, right? And I think that's where having the good candid conversation. I think with the backdrop for me of thinking, I thought a lot about like my life over the next 10 years and just things personal to me. I'm like, can I, you know, am I ready to kind of keep pushing the same way and doing the same things? Do I think I have enough, not only like energy wise, but do I also think the business needs other people around me, different than me? And so I think it was in a personal conversation that we wanted all of us shareholders to feel the freedom to say, I'm either super pumped about this or like, hey, I feel like I've checked a box and done something that I'm proud of and I'm happy sliding away. And so I think we got all the four of us into a spot where we felt comfortable being able to answer that honestly to each other and then saying, well, sure, let's have someone help us explore.
Yeah.
Right. So that got us to like, I mean, at least
March, April,
yeah,
right?
March, April timeframe.
And that's when we,
And again, it took a few
yeah.
conversations and some good, very personal ones of like, are we okay doing this? And they said, all right, well, let's maybe get some help and take a look at what the world looks like. So here comes the how part of this. All right. There's
Yeah.
the why. The why is again, let's be prepared for the next few decades to sustain the thing that we're really proud of that we built.
Yeah, we kept calling it Acuity 3.0 because it was the third
Acuity
decade, right?
3.0.
We're entering the
Yep.
3.0, the third decade of Acuity. So like how do we were laser focused on the third decade, like what's going to happen between now and 2034. So that was
I
kind of
did
the big
Acuity 1.0 without him.
I
It
know
was,
we all saw how that went.
we barely got through. But we did Acuity 2.0. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the humility came in of like, we're going to need Acuity 3.0. We need to keep adjusting and maybe sometimes running experiments and breaking ourselves and doing different things to keep being successful. So this was 3.0 coming in. And I think we figured that out that how are we going to find Acuity 3.0? Well, we need some outside perspective and just responding to cold solicit emails or phone calls from like, hey, do you want to merge? Do you want to be acquired? Do you want investment? Like that was draining us. Like that was just becoming
Well, I mean,
confusing.
candidly, like a lot of that, like everybody's like, okay, Matthew, what do you think? With this offer that just came in and stuff like that. And I think you were feeling it. I think I was feeling it. We were feeling out of our element. Like, yeah, we know like deal structures, we know whatever, but like I think we were too close to this. So at the end of the day, when we're like, what's the true value of the company? And the non-financial stuff that goes into it, we felt like it was really important at the end of the day to get professional help that we're going to pay for. We decided we're going to just like we tell people they should pay for our services, like because we're going to take care of their finances. Like we needed somebody to help us think about enterprise value, think about people, think about consequences to actions, and that's where the Bravaldo Capital guys came in, right?
That's right.
So
That's right. Yeah, I think it's true that you and I, because of we've been a CFO, we've been in the CFO seat before. We've done a lot of deals. And so I'd say from a firm owner perspective, we've probably seen more deal structures than most have. We're a little more comfortable than most people. We've done a couple of deals of our own of acquiring, so we're pretty comfortable with deals. But even we realize that like we do not have near the amount of skill set or professionalism that someone who really does this all the time does, or someone that is at the table who's going to come in to acquire us. I think the second thing is you don't have the objectivity. Like you just have a bias about your firm. There's blind spots that you have. You're like,
yeah.
you think you're great. We can get into some of those, some things that you think you're just awesome at that other people look at and go, that doesn't make any sense. So there's a couple pieces there that having outside help really helps with. And again, it's not an inexpensive process by any means,
No.
but we felt it was worth it. And so we got all the four of us to agree, and we picked an investment bank a mid-market investment bank through Bravado Capital Advisors. I keep shouting them out. A lot of people use brokers.
Yeah,
Brokers,
we shouldn't give them the sponsorship. We paid them a lot.
we did say that a lot. We did say that. But they did okay for all of us too. So they're,
They did their job,
they did
right?
their job. They did their job. But we needed the help. Luckily for us, the founder there, he and I had been friends. He's also an accountant back in his days. We knew each other. They're a client of Acuity, so they knew how we worked. And we had been calling on them kind of for years just for advice. They were always helpful to pick up the phone. And so we had a nice relationship there. And so we moved forward with the folks from BCA. Um, I guess as we got into that state, like what without getting, we don't want to get into all the numbers here of like of financial side of it, but like it's a big number you pay these folks, right? You're basically
Yeah.
paying some retainer fees, you're paying success fees. It's a lot. So some people decide not to go there. Out, what got you over the hump when you think about not just BCA, this is not a commercial for them, but like when you saw the process, like was there something about like when you thought, oh, this is worth the professional help when you saw something they did or the process? What about it got you?
Yeah, I mean, just for context, they had kind of laid out a plan to where like there was this prep process. So like when we signed in March through like July-ish was all prep. It was all just, and so there was a pretty substantial monthly fee that goes with that. So when I was doing the math, I was like, will we be better off in making decisions about what we want to do if we spend this money? Like, would we be this introspective on ourselves? Because we don't have to make a decision like going through this process. Like, we can go through and do nothing. I was like, and then when I was looking at the numbers, I was like, that's probably worth long term to us more than we're paying, right?
Yeah.
Just and that included like we started straight out of the gate spending 50 grand with or more with Bennett Thrasher doing a quality of earnings on the sell side. So we were like,
We did a
tell us what we don't know.
yeah.
Like we did a sell side quality of earnings on top of our investment banking fees. Then we went in and like they scrubbed our numbers. Like the investment bankers went through. If you've ever had somebody go through like your numbers and due diligence on you, you know how painful that is. But this was like the first run we went we had to go through it twice, which was kind of an interesting side when you decide to go sell side because they went through it from our perspective, right? They were like, they're going through like, this is what people are going to find. This is what we're going to have to say. Like, we're going to have an articulate story to be able to tell when they ask this question. These are the kind of things that we want to understand. Like, you guys need to be prepared to explain the business reasons behind the financial like observations, right? Um, so just as they were like articulating that, I thought, it was in our spirit, and you kept saying this at the time. It's like, yeah, we do things different. Like we're gonna hire an investment banker and we're gonna like
Do a
learn
QE
all
up
these
front.
stuff. Like we're gonna do it up different.
Hire
Like we're not gonna go
live.
pick one. We're gonna be like, we actually was a humble thing to do because we
Yeah,
fancied ourselves knowing everybody in the space, right?
we did.
And so
Well,
we
so in terms of
part
meaning,
of it was an acknowledgement that like we don't know what we don't know.
yeah,
And that ended up being true. We ended up with a group that we never even heard about in our
yep,
entire, like
yep.
nobody we had met in
There were
our
a few,
ecosystem.
there were a few small touch points, but
Oh.
nothing like
There
like
was
we
like
thought.
a
Yep,
friend of a friend through Jason, right?
yep, yep.
That was basically it.
You and Mike sharing a
Um,
cab at one point,
Mike
and
shared a cab, the CEO shared a cab with me one time,
but
and
like very
that was like a
so
random
so again, like
thing.
I think that the
But
we tend to think that yeah, we know everybody in the accounting space. Anyone who's going to want to buy or merge with us or anything like that, we already know them, and that was naive. Again, I think we kind of knew that.
well, I
And
think
I was surprised. You even said at one point, you're like, dude, I'm going to be so pissed if everybody on this list that comes back that's interested is all people we knew. Um, and even that, I was like, I know it. That would suck. Well, that wasn't the case. But also, even that would have been miscalculated of like having someone helping you go through, even if it is people you know, someone who can be objective and help you kind of get the right value from an independent standpoint is helpful. But it's I think the other thing driving this for me was I thought about the 20 years spent of building something that we were really proud of what the team all did together, and just so honored to serve so many clients. And it just felt like if we're going to do something, like we wanted to do it right,
with intention, right?
very intentional. And so we just felt like we needed to be able to walk away if we didn't want to do anything. And it was going to be expensive if we did. But we wanted to really go and understand the market. What were the options that Acuity was going to have in the coming decades? And so, in true to our style, that always made me feel good about it. I think you two were like, "Yeah, let's get weird. Let's just do this in a weird way that no one else is going to do." To where we're going to run a process that probably looked like a process that much larger companies would run. And so I think we learned a lot from it. And that's something that you and I also were looking forward to, was like, oh, let's just go learn how this really
Yeah,
works.
and that came to fruition. I remember Lisa telling us because Mark is one of the BCA guys, after he was going through some of the data and asking great questions, Lisa was like, "How do we get this? How do we incorporate this like style of questions in this data, like this level of data, like expectation of making decisions with data into our everyday life?"
Right.
So like it was just like a helpful exercise, and this was like what I'll call phase one. This was like the preparation phase before July.
Yeah. And
So
it's a lot. I mean, you're building a data room essentially, and you're loading it up with all kinds of information and documents.
like all your skeletons,
Yeah.
you're getting ahead of everything. You're trying to get everybody to get all the skeletons. So like there's nothing in due diligence. So
And they're
that was kind of
and
fun.
they're pulling together
That
these.
that was very in our spirit. We're pretty transparent.
That yeah, it was. They're pulling together this huge documents, right? Like, I mean, this huge document that gets out, and they basically when you go market yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole interesting thing when you get to see
Oh yeah, yeah. So then
you're
we get
yeah,
into Jan. Let's
let's
get
get
into July. Okay, so then we get
Matthew
into
loves
like
this.
then we pull the trigger. We're like, okay, we've done the prep. We got the sell side quality earnings. Bent Thrasher just gave us a colonoscopy.
Can you
That's great.
real quick, can you run someone through? So maybe if you haven't heard of a quality of earnings, what it is and how it's kind of used in the transaction. Because there's some people who may not understand what it
They
truly is.
basically went back, I think they went back 2 years
Yeah.
and vouched like every bank statement transaction to basically like validate the cash inflows and outflows of the business.
Yeah.
And they went and produced a report that we could give to potential people that were interested, just so we knew. Because I think one of the big things that my perspective is now on the other side of it, people have a unrealistic expectation of what their cash flow is, what their EBITDA is, and what's going to be accepted. And that's a big like factor in determining value of these businesses. So having somebody like Bennett Thrasher go through and say, here's what we would consider your adjusted EBITDA, like with all the add backs, with all the take backs, this is what we consider your adjusted EBITDA. And them with their reputation, like going through and putting their stamp on it, gave us some comfort that we had the like one of the components to the value equation. It's adjusted EBITDA times your revenue multiple,
Yeah.
your EBITDA multiple, right? That's the equation for this thing. And then deal structure is a whole other thing
But I mean,
once you get
but
within
that's a
there.
great way to think of it. Is
So
the adjusted EBITDA is going to be a huge component of these size of deals. And so that's what a QOE essentially is going to do for you, is have a third party come validate that. Because what's going to happen further down the road, we'll get there, is somebody's going to go beat the crap out of your EBITDA
yeah,
and all your adjusted everything. And
his
so
his
we
name's
base,
his name's Anish.
yeah,
He's really nice. He's on my
but
side now.
you're going to have analysts who work for the firm.
There you go.
Do
It
all
was great.
But we chose to say, let's do it to ourselves first. Let's go ahead and spend a ton of money and do it first. Because we cared about the process. We wanted to learn something. And so that's what a QOE essentially is, a quality of earnings. And again, is what really helps you get to that adjusted EBITDA number, right?
Yep,
And so
that's right.
that was also part of that prep work. All right, so go past all the prep work, Matthew. Now get into
July.
the marketing side, which is
Okay. The
interesting.
July was the best because we didn't have to do crap. So
Time for the
this is
bankers
the
to do their
bankers
work.
do their thing. So now we've done all our work, and by we I mean me and Lisa and Ann, and mostly Ann have done the work on like get
And did a
points,
ton of work on
and did a
numbers.
like our CFO did a phenomenal job like pulling all this together. But so so we do so we then handed over like all this data information, and they produced what they call a teaser, which was like a 2-page no name, which is weird for us because like we thought our name meant something, but they put a no name thing out there to the market. It says, here's this company, here's the financial indication of like all this kind of stuff. Are you interested? And from there, if people say yes, they went to 250 different groups. This is like firms of all sizes, people that are considered strategic. We had one of the groups was a VA firm that had an accounting arm.
We basically kind of split it up
We
amongst
had just
strategic
private equity.
and financial buyers,
Yeah,
right?
financial.
What's cool in our space, in the accounting space right now, is you got this blend of strategics and financials. Yeah, there's just kind of
So,
three interesting kind of cohorts of
so, so they're
firms.
going after all these people and they're peppering them with emails and trying to get them to sign an NDA. And then once they signed the NDA, they got what they called our SIM. We're almost ready for our second drink.
I know.
Okay,
I'm gonna start
we're
getting ready.
okay. Start getting ready because I'm almost out too. Okay, and so if you sign the NDA, then you got access to our SIM, and our SIM was a 60-page doc, which was like here's like a PowerPoint presentation on crack with all of the particulars about Acuity. It was from culture to customer stats to revenue trends to plans to everything we had. So um, eh, SIM is confidential investment memorandum. So CIM.
CIM, yep, the
So
thing.
so the SIM when we worked on that for a long time. So then that goes out and people that are interested in that, and after that they stage them to the data room. And then once they get in the data room, they get even more stuff. They get the quality of earnings report. They get all of the other stuff that's working. So this is like how they've staged the thing. This is why we hired professionals because we had no clue you're supposed to do most of this stuff. Like a lot of what we learned from the bankers is a lot of this is about staging. It's almost like a sales funnel. Like they were taking people down through a funnel. They're gauging interest. They were making sure people are interested, and they were working through the funnel. So then once you got the sim, once you got the quality of earnings, we got to, what was it, August or September? So
Yep,
they had a due date and they had to do what they called an indication of interest, which is
IOI.
an IOI. So they had to indicate that they were interested in give a range that they might pay for us, like at Acuity or the structure, what the structure of their investment or partnership that they wanted to look like. So they were required to send to us like all these 250 people were required to do that. So from that, 11 people decided, hey, let's put our names in the hat. Here's kind of generally what we have. The bankers went back and forth with them. And then we had a decision to make. Are we going to switch?
Yeah, take a quick breath.
Okay.
All right, while Matthew's taking a quick breath, here's what's up next on the drink. What do you think? It's a long episode, lots happening, and we're moving to hard alcohol.
I know beer before liquor, we're going to be hosed today.
The Pampero Aniversario. This is a Venezuelan rum that once again our friends at BCA, Don Bravaldo, gave us this rum when we kind of closed the deal.
Did you do that for closing the deal or was that Christmas? I think that was a Christmas
Maybe
present. I
Christmas.
think that was
Maybe
even before we
Christmas.
closed the
Maybe it
deal.
was Christmas. Yeah,
So,
nice gift there. His wife is from Venezuela. Audi, she's a lovely lady. So he gets these very good rum, which we're going to try here,
I'm
Matthew.
doing rum too?
I'm
Okay.
going to rum too.
Okay. I thought, oh, we're going to do, oh, okay.
Cheers.
Mhm. There's nothing like a good sip in hard
But
alcohol.
by the way, that actually tastes like it has less alcohol than what I just consumed.
Well, it probably does. Like about 14%er, like
This
this
is
is this is only
this is
like
nice. This is
that's
mellow.
like 40%.
This is mellow. Okay,
Okay.
back to the
So
market.
we're in IOIs. We got 11 IOIs. So the next stage of what happens when you hire a banker or our banker, what their game plan was we had to sit down as an ownership team, and the four of us have to decide who we're going to bring in to be able to tell our story to spend 4 to 6 hours with in Atlanta, Georgia, where they come into Atlanta, Georgia, they tell us about what they're doing, we tell them about what we're doing, and we do a whole presentation. And they're called management meetings. So what did we get to 7?
7. Yep.
Okay.
So we're
So went from 11 to 7 at that point. We invited 7 groups in. And over a period of about 10 business days, we have 7 people, 7 groups back to back to back to back coming into Atlanta. And we're telling the same story over and over, trying to remember what we said to each one to make sure we told everybody everything. Is that a good representation of
It
that?
is, but let's stop here. Let's hit
Okay.
pause here for a second. Again, so we're
Theirs is
we're we're in the funnel. This is a
well,
good beginning.
before management meetings was a pivotal moment to me in this whole
Okay.
thing.
Okay. So
Like
give me
it is
another
one of the
moment.
best takeaways I had.
Okay. Give me this one. What do you got?
Well, in September, before everybody comes to town, the investment bankers asked us the most valuable question they could have asked us because we were all trying to be everything to all people at that time. So Patty, Kenji, Lisa, me were trying to be everything to all people. And they said, stop. And they said, you guys have to tell them what each of you individually wants and what you collectively want. Not just from like which jobs you not like what jobs you want, whether you want a job or you don't want a job, how you want to go forward, and what the company is going to do going forward. And that may seem obvious to everybody, but it was not obvious to us. Don't you think?
Yes, I'm really, really glad you stopped there, right? 'Cause this is a pivotal moment.
This was the most pivotal moment in the
Yeah,
whole process to me
because
because we had prepared a completely different management.
we had different presentations. But in the point being is, yes, we had talked about what each of us kind of wanted back before we hired the bankers. And like, oh, it's like, oh, I
And
want
Patty was most
this.
clear.
Yeah. But
Patty wanted to garden.
I'm
Like
gonna go
you
out
know,
and look in
like
the
well, that
garden.
was her joke always.
Yeah.
Like she wanted to garden. She was
We're gonna
like,
garden,
I
take
want
a
to garden.
great
I want to
sabbatical.
garden.
But
I want to break.
all of us kind of had to think through that. And in some ways, it's very easy to say, well, I'm not sure what I want. I want to hear what they offer up first, right? You're kind of a little bit now you're kind of in a deal where there's another party there. And so you're thinking through, like, I don't know, maybe they have something really cool to offer me in a role. And then that's where our banker said, like, time out. If you kind of try to play that the whole time, you need to go tell them what you want. And so this was that forcing function of like, what do each of us want? And it was, for me, it was kind of I had to sit and think about that. And I kind of knew going into this, but this is when I really solidified for me of like, what do I want?